Good morning. Good morning. What's up, JMart? How we doing, man?
Doing good. Doing good. Yeah.
So I guess we've all consumed. I don't know if I can speak for everybody. I've consumed a lot of content over the past 48 hours, getting everybody's opinions that I normally listen to throughout the football season. Yet to get yours. I don't know if you're gonna say anything I haven't heard. It seems the narrative, and then I'll set you up and you can roll. Is kind of plain and simple. The Eagles had a way better team. They got pressure without blitzing, and Mahomes was not good to say the least. Is that where you're going to pick up? Is there something else that jumped at you? Floor is yours.
No, yeah. I mean, going into the game, if you didn't think that the Eagles were the better team, you were just biased. Like they had more talent. They're the more talented roster. If you were on the Chiefs side, it was simply because Patrick Mahomes, you kind of felt at this point you can't bet against him. That's kind of how I felt. I felt like if the Chiefs were to lose the game, it would have to be a blowout, which it was. And yeah, I think that the Eagles defense was what really won them the game. I think the offense was good, but I do think the Chiefs did a great job stopping Saquon. I think their big hole was kind of stopping Jalen Hurts from running. I think outside of that, they played a pretty solid defensive game that like you won't see in the overall score. I thought they were fine. The Chiefs just didn't do anything on offense. It took way too long for them to kind of, I think they didn't I don't think they spread it out quick enough. I think Andy Reid's a guy that's been a he kind of reinvented the screenplay in the NFL. Didn't really see it that much early on, and they tried it a couple times. It just didn't really work. I think the Eagles beat them. I think when you can blitz four guys and get the pressure they got, it kind of makes it pretty easy to play defense. And yeah, the better team won. Honestly, no one can walk away from that and really say the Chiefs deserve to win that game. They just not at no point did it feel like they did.
And Jahan Dotson, who probably disappointed a lot of people during the regular season, Eagles fans, they paid a price for him. He was a fantasy dud. Came up big in the postseason. Was big early. Those one-on-one plays on the outside. Would you say that's Hurts and Brown and Hurts and Smith and Hurts and Dotson beating the Chiefs, or do you blame Spagnuolo for allowing the one-on-one coverage on the outside like that?
I think Spagnuolo had to do one-on-one coverage just to get enough people in the box to really like de-incentivize the Eagles from running the ball because you do have to script to stop Saquon, period. I
Mm-hmm.
think that when you have three receivers of the talent level of Dotson, Brown, and Smith, it is difficult for the Chiefs secondary to man up every play and like fully contain them. And you saw that like most of the time they weren't open, but when they were, it was a big play, and that really is what killed them.
Yeah, they made a handful of big plays on the sideline. What was your what was your read on Kelsey? I didn't really touch on him the other day. I guess I don't touch on him that much because it just feels like it's like him and Aaron Rodgers is just like a loaded topic. And it's not that he's not relevant, but there's other things that I felt were more interesting. But when I look back on it and listen to some people, seemed to step slow on the like sweat was blown by him. Watching some of the things, some of the film, did you blame, especially on that 1 3rd and 2? It felt like that was on Mahomes, not on Kelsey. Why do you think he just was? Is he done? What was your take on him?
Well, he's never really been that good of a blocker in general. That's never been a good part of his game. And as he gets older, you got to expect that to get worse too. I thought he had one bad drop in the first half. The one when he cut in and he was open and the ball got to him and he just didn't catch it. I thought the other one on third down, I think, when it was
That's
just low.
yeah.
I heard them call it a drop. I mean, you go out there and try and catch that ball, it's basically impossible. I don't think the Chiefs tried. I think the Chiefs needed to get him the ball a little more. I think they needed to really force a situation where he got the ball in his hands to kind of try and open the game up. You saw as soon as he started to get going later in the game, it really unlocked Xavier Worthy, and that may be just because they were losing by like 40 points. But I think if you had to make it a priority to get Kelsey the ball, whether it was a screen pass or a super short hitch, because once you get him the ball, it makes it easier for Hollywood, for Worthy, for Juju to all kind of operate. It was a bad game from him. They bracketed him all game, but yeah.
That first down when he whipped it like the Juju got
Yeah.
you 11 yards, your first bet hits, and I'm like, oh, he's on. That was just like a bullet, and I felt like those were going to be like the plays that were going to be open. The biggest criticism, there was two things that I listened to after I did the pod yesterday that I guess furthered the analysis that Mahomes really was bad. One of them was his jitteriness in the pocket. There's a handful of plays where he started moving too early. And that was the rub one. That's why he wasn't the number one pick in the draft. Like, he's never had great feet in the pocket. And what he does that was pointed out very eloquently by the great Super Bowl winning quarterback Trent Dilfer. I love listening to Trent Dilfer. UAB is struggling out there, and I think he's having a hard time. But he was on Russillo's podcast, and he's the best. Dilfer does a great job breaking down the quarterback. Anyway, so he always talked about how most quarterbacks, and Lamar's in this category, where they tend to kind of run to the outside. Hurts does it too. They tend to scramble more, like running to the outside. But Mahomes is like one of the things that's great quality about him that Aaron Rodgers has mastered, and Brady did it to an extent, is being able to step up in the pocket. Like, that is boom. And he was just moving his feet more than he needed to. Yes, the line wasn't great by any means. That was the first thing. And then the second thing that was deep when you watch the tape, and I think Dilfer again described this as like a sticky zone concept, where the Eagles, because they were able to get pressure with four guys, their zone was such a read and react type of zone where they had flexibility, and that's what Cooper did. I mean, he baited Patrick. That's just like old school backyard football, where if you listen to Patrick after, if you watch the film, like, Cooper's assignment was the sideline, right? Like, he was supposed to kind of make sure that Patrick couldn't get out there, / Worthy on the outside, and Patrick thought he looked him off just enough. But because there's fucking 30 guys playing defense, Cooper didn't really have to go over there. They already had a guy in Patrick's face, and then boom. So yeah, I think that the more that I listened, the more it was like, yeah, the line wasn't great, but Patrick really had a hard time just kind of being still for a second. So, any other thoughts? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he lost confidence in his offensive line almost immediately. Like, it was almost like confirmation bias. Like, he went into the game expecting them to be bad. And then when he got like pressure the first time, he was like, yeah, my offensive line's horrible. I have to do it all myself now. And there were times where he stepped up, I think, too quickly. I think there was one time he stepped up almost just straight into Jalen Carter, I think. I think that he kind of lost his head way too fast, and it torpedoed any possible chance they had of winning the game when Mahomes is just kind of in a different world. I mean, both of those interceptions, like Dejean's was phenomenal. It was a great bait. The Bond one's probably a ball, even without that pressure. He probably just shouldn't throw that ball. I just don't. It's kind of you really don't like throwing middle of the field, like in between linebacker and safety. It's always just going to be dangerous.
Yep.
Yeah, and especially from the goal line. I think he tried to do a little too much. I think he got a little overconfident. And yeah, I think you're always going to compare him to Tom Brady. That's one thing you would never see Tom Brady do, is like he kind of always would operate within himself. That's really one of the few times I've seen Mahomes kind of try and like play with that overconfidence instead of just confidence. It felt like he thought he was a lot better than he was that day.
Yeah, Brady, that's what I was saying yesterday. It's hard not to think about him, A, because he did the game, and B, because Mahomes just has lapped his current competition in statistics that's like just not really fun to debate who's better than Mahomes. You kind of just run into, all of his numbers, whether you want to go with Lamar, Allen, or Burrow. But the Brady stuff, I think the biggest thing about Brady because I hated it so much, is he would just throw it to the running backs. He would just
right read. He would like Mahomes. He didn't do that. Brady would. No one's open. I'm going to the running back. Mahomes on Sunday, it was no one's open. I'm gonna try and force it with my arm, and it's the Super Bowl. You kind of can't take that risk.
So there's one game. Hold on, I gotta pull it up. There's one game that Brady, I couldn't believe it happened as the game was happening. What was it? 2009. So the Ravens destroyed the Patriots.
Was it the really like Brady was really, really bad?
It's like the worst. I want to pull up and get the exact statistics because yeah,
Wasn't good.
33 to 14. Ray Wright's first play of the game, he just ran it for a touchdown.
Yeah, I've seen that in this game.
But it was the first time because at this point, literally Flacco's numbers this game. I didn't want to just like guess it. 4 for 10, 34 yards, and an interception, and we won 33 to 14.
Yeah.
And Brady, a lot like Mahomes, it looked a little better statistically at the end. But he finished, it was 23 for 42, a buck 54, 2 TDs, 3 interceptions, but the 2 TDs were irrelevant. And watching the game, we scared him. And afterwards, it was like, yeah, Haloti Ngata and Suggs, and the line just pushed the pocket, and he got nervous, jittery feet. It happened to Peyton Manning probably a dozen times in the playoffs with his record. All due respect.
What was Manning's biggest issue is that Manning had the arm talent where because Brady, arm talent wise, Manning was leagues ahead of him. But that got him in trouble because Manning knew how good of a passer he was. He just tried to do too much. He would just try to do too much.
I guess my overall point after listening to everything and just kind of taking a step back is every game can go almost either way in a lot of different situations, right? And so when you see one team have a way dominant offensive or defensive line, that's the only time at high level football where a game can't go either way. The talent level is so dynamic. These guys are amazing, but every quarterback, and now for the first time, and I think that's why people are trying to digest this and maybe make it bigger than what it is, which is Mahomes is just now like everybody else. He had an awful game. His happens on the Super Bowl. Brady's has happened not quite in the Super Bowl. He was on his way to it, and then he fixed it. But the reality is, this is what happens. It's the only position in sports where at the highest level you can see it is virtually impossible to have a dominant defensive line over a dominant offensive line or a dominant offensive line over a dominant defensive line in the Super Bowl when everybody makes it to the pinnacle. And in this case, once it happens and you recognize it, the game is just over. That's the main takeaway, is to make it about Mahomes is sure, yeah, but even if you go deeper into it, once the Eagles, they intimidated them. It was just, man, we're going to rush 3-4 guys. Plus, they're rotating guys. Go look at the snap count of the Eagles' defensive line. It wasn't the Giants.
Oh yeah, no, they have
it's 8-9 guys. They just keep boom, 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 boom.
Nolan Smith doesn't start. Jordan Davis doesn't start. They get minutes here and there. I didn't even know Brandon Graham was healthy. I'm going to be honest. I knew he tore his tricep. I didn't know he was playing. Yeah. But my question is, do you think the Ravens fully healthy could have beaten that Eagles team? Do you think that Lamar as a scrambler would have matched up better?
They got the chance earlier in the year, and they got dominated because they couldn't stop Barkley at the end of the game. That was tough to watch.
That? I don't see that happening again. I don't see him running all over them a second time.
So the thing is that the one thing that I don't know if it would happen again if they played is, would it be a draw as far as the Eagles' offensive line won the pass protection battle, but they lost the run. I mean, the Chiefs' defensive line won that battle. Would that happen again? I'm not sure. Do the Ravens have the same personnel? I don't know. That's a good question. I think that the Eagles committed to running the football, which I don't know if that even really helped them. The takeaway from the game was the Eagles' defensive line is just kind of that simple. Some of the things that the Eagles did on offense, yeah, Hurts made some nice plays on the sideline, but I mean, the Chiefs' defensive line almost dominated. Barkley couldn't get going at all. Yeah, Hurts got a couple scrambles, but the design runs weren't quite there. It would have been really interesting to see if the Chiefs' defense would have been able to hold up if the game was a little bit more competitive in the fourth quarter. I don't know. Maybe Barkley was being a little bit more conservative. Maybe they ran plays that were a little more conservative offensively as a run scheme to make sure they didn't lose the 2 or 3 yards. Because remember, Barkley would get a lot of carries that would be 0 yards for such a dynamic back. So that was a long way of answering your question that I don't fucking know. We should have beat the Bills. That would have helped. Yeah, I don't know if this is the biggest revelation in the world, that if you have a really dominant defensive line, Yeah, that's the key to victory.
And the crazy thing is, it's sustainable. They're all young. They got to bring back, I think, Zach Bond. I think they lose Josh Sweat. Brandon Graham leaves, but you can replace one of them with Nolan Smith. You can draft again. You have Zach Bond now, who's incredible. The secondary is super deep too and super young. I mean, I think the defense just gets better, which is like kind of terrifying to think about.
The Eagles, to me, they are a better version of the 2019 Ravens. The 2019 Ravens, I think, revolutionized this modern football, which is you actually should run the football. Like it went from a passing league to now all the teams have smaller players to combat all these fast wide receivers. And if you have a dominant offensive line with a running quarterback, you're going to be impossible to beat. That 2019 Ravens team was like impossible to beat. Like they were just blowing teams out, and it reminded me of this Eagles team. And the Eagles just fully executed it with, I would argue, worse quarterback, but a quarterback committed to the style of play, and maybe an offensive coordinator that was a little bit more dynamic than Greg Roman was. Yeah, I don't know. It's over with now. Eagles get the damn Super Bowl. Kind of crazy to look back on the whole year and be like, I'm so confident the Eagles were not going to win. I picked the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl, and then I at least feel good that I'm growing up. I'd rather get things right than just stick to my own opinion. So I did think the Eagles were going to win the game, but I didn't think the Sirianni character would get it done. Just goes to show that you can't really, pontificate on what's going on in a locker room when you're not in the fucking locker room. Like Sirianni does seem like a jackass. It seems like dysfunctional. But what's the rule of being a head coach? Like, how hard does your team play? Are they disciplined? And the Eagles.
I think Sirianni is one of those coaches that, like, when they're winning, he's great. I think once they start losing, it just it's going to be a nightmare. Like no one will want to be there. Once you've tasted winning a Super Bowl with him and you start recognizing some of the stupid shit he does, because he does a lot of stupid shit. Like he's weird with 2-point.
Did he do anything though? Did he do anything stupid in
this Super game? Bowl? Was perfect.
Yeah, he did really.
I was worried. There was one point where I think they were up 7-0. It was like 4th and 2, like relatively.
Oh, yeah. I thought he was gonna go for it.
I was like, no one goes for that. He thought about going for it. He went and kicked.
It wasn't even 4th and 2. It was closer to 4th and 4. I think they called it 4th and 3, but it was a long 3. And it just was, the vibe was to kick a field goal. You knew it was to kick a field goal. And then he ran the guys out there. Yeah, so that was good. That was, oh boy. Any, did you think the refs, were you ready to have your game script? Were you one of those after the first interference call?
I was like, no way they're doing it. And then actually in the end, I'd argue the Eagles got most of the calls. Honestly, looking back on it, there was a really bad missed unnecessary roughness that doesn't matter because they were losing by a lot. But Jalen Carter hit the hell out of Patrick Mahomes really late. Yeah. That you can't do that.
What about McDuffie's? Did you think that? I guess because they called it on Brown, they called it on McDuffie. The one, I guess it was a personal foul, right? Like after.
Oh yeah. That was stupid. Those were dumb. I don't know why they did those. That was really bad. That was when the Chiefs defense was playing bad, as they were the unnecessary late hits, like try and like prove a point. You don't need to do it. It's Super Bowl. Just don't do it.
Exactly.
Yeah, those were rough.
All right. Kind of want to wrap up / transition here. We'll do plenty of football stuff here, but we're gonna move to the NBA. But we decided to give you a clean slate here and do play of the day, like an NBA player prop. Each day, whatever your favorite player prop is, that's what we'll have out for everybody as we transition / move forward. Everything's about moving forward. Baseball season's coming up. College basketball, we're in the midst of it. We'll still do our pod here on Tuesdays, and I got a few other things coming up soon that I'll be announcing. But I want to do a lot of NBA stuff with you because I think the I don't know. There's two ways basically to talk about the NBA: the soap opera of the NBA, which I guess is somewhat interesting. I'm guilty of the two, whether it's players' Twitter getting mad at each other, players' podcasts, listening to old stories, the trades, all that jazz. It is interesting to some extent, but you can tend to be negative because then you get the Jimmy Butler stories out of that stuff. But you and I we're just going to talk hoops here because these guys are amazing at basketball. Like last night, I was just watching the end of the Mavericks Kings game. Did you see the end of that game?
No, I got to overtime. I was watching the end of the fourth, but
Kyrie's shot making at the end of the game is that like you should just watch that every morning to wake up, and it's just great to watch. He's incredible, and then Klay Thompson I thought hit the game winner, and then DeMar Rosen's shot making is ridiculous too. And so he
being
wins.
able to go from like De'Aaron Fox, who is one of the most clutch players, to DeMar DeRozan, who is, if you're talking about the most clutch player that isn't like a superstar, those are the two guys.
Yeah, and he's happy that Fox is gone. Right, Fox is gone now. He gets the ball at the end of the game. It was a weird fit with them. Anyway, it just pointing out like the if you're interested in just the basketball aspect, the race is pretty interesting for the playoffs. All the teams are kind of settled. What is your take right this second on, after the dust has been settled? Who do you think's the actual favorite in the West? Because the Thunder are going to be the 1 seed. The Nuggets have the best player, I think. Right? We still agree Jokic is the best player.
Yeah, after this season, yeah.
And then the Lakers got LeBron and Luka. Is there somebody else? How do you see it playing out once we get deeper into the season?
Yeah, I think with NBA teams, there are like 3 tiers that really matter for the playoffs. Is like tier 1 is like you can win. Like you can win the championship. That's how good you are. That's your like logical ceiling. If you were to walk up to someone on the side of the street and say, hey, the Rockets are going to win the NBA Finals, they'd probably be like, no, they aren't. And it's like, yeah, that's fair. And like, but then the Rockets probably fall in that second tier, which is like they can win a playoff series. They can get deep. They're a team that you can see making the finals as a ceiling, but like you can't really take them seriously as a NBA championship contender. And then tier 3 is one of those teams that's like they can win a playoff series. You see what happens after that, but they're definitely good enough to at least win a series. But
so who do you?
After
that? Do you throw the Thunder in they could actually win a championship? Do you think
they got to be there? Yeah, I think that last season was a perfect example of like they're a tier 2 team. They're like, yeah, they are the 1 seed, but they're so young. They haven't been here before. You can't say they're going to win it all. They just won't. This year they've been there. Shea's even better than he was last year. I think Chet's better. Jalen Williams is better. Hartenstein's a great ad. Caruso, when he starts playing, I think will be valuable. This is a really good team. It's super deep. The legs on all the players will be pretty fresh once it comes playoff time. That team has to be there. The Lakers are there because when you put LeBron and Luka on the same team, they got to be. And then the one team that I've been back and forth on all season because I really like them, I really like the Grizzlies. I really like the Grizzlies, the way they're constructed. They're just like the Thunder. They're a super deep team. I think Ja Morant's got that clutch ability that's like super valuable. I think Jaren Jackson has had a career season. He's been incredible. I think Jalen Wells, phenomenal player they picked up in the 2nd round this draft. And then when you have a guy as big as Zach Edey, it makes it a lot easier to defend the paint. And yeah, they're like my dark horse kind of weird team right now.
So I would people tend to forget, I don't know if you're one of them, but the Nuggets are still the best team. So let me make this argument for you. Tell me where the disagreement is. The Nuggets were on their way to the championship last year. They were on their way to the Western Conference Finals against the Mavericks until they blew a 20-some point lead at home to the Timberwolves. And then they came out of the gate and kind of just struggled a little bit. This what Jokic is doing, okay, there's 0 people on planet Earth that are going to stop him this go around because now you have an angry Jokic. Like you had last year, you had comfortable Jokic. And I didn't know how he was going to respond. And then they started to not be great this year, and it wasn't his fault. But now all of a sudden he's playing at even a higher level. He almost single-handedly beat us in the Olympics. And this is what he did last night again. And granted, it's the Blazers, but the Blazers have been hot. 31 minutes, just for the record. He played 31 minutes. 40 points, 8 assists, 7 rebounds. I mean, his numbers, I just have to read them because I don't understand how this is possible that his numbers are this amazing and they're not like undefeated. I know that they had some holes in other spots, but overall, this is ridiculous. It's 29, 12 and a half, and 10. And it may as well be 30. It's 29.8, 12 and a half, and 10.2. Like, those are his numbers. I don't think the Thunder – all right, this is my take. The Thunder no chance to beat the Nuggets in the series. They're just
I disagree. I have to really disagree.
they're too small. They're too tiny. It's
I think
Hartenstein.
if Hartenstein and Holmgren come back, I think what it comes down to bench shooting. Like the issue with the Nuggets isn't like starting lineup. That lineup's ridiculous with Jokic, but like MPJ's been bad, and their bench can't shoot. Their bench just really can't shoot that well. The Thunder's bench shoots the
You
lights
don't
out.
like the guy. You don't like the kid from Gonzaga, Strawther. He's coming along.
He's hot or cold, but you don't want that in the playoffs when I can compare him to like Isaiah Joe, Aaron Wiggins, all these dudes that the Thunder just print out that can just shoot
You
threes.
get me all right. The Jokic comp is the Mahomes, where you just get me to 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and he's going to be in better shape, and he's going to dominate the Thunder inside. He's going to dominate the Lake. The Lakers lost Mark Williams. I don't know how that.
Oh yeah, no, they killed the Lakers. Yeah, you put Jokic up against the Lakers, it's over. But I
Yeah.
think Shea's good enough down the stretch too and I don't think that they have a guy that can guard that position good enough. I think that Shea is so much taller. He's so good. He's so good at getting into good shooting situations and good at drawing fouls. It's tough, and I think they're just the deeper team at the end, and I think they have the best defensive setup in basketball, and I think you're running up against a team that's great defensively, playing a team that doesn't shoot that well. It makes it a lot harder for them to score.
So I was getting ready to try to agree with some of. There's where I'm at. I'm at with the Grizzlies are going to play the Nuggets. I got the Nuggets facing the Lakers in the Western Conference Finals because I got the Lakers getting there somehow. I know the bracket has to come out and they could end up on the same side, but assuming they don't, and I just think it's meant for us all to enjoy a big man clash. And the Edie character from Purdue has been great on the Grizzlies. They use him in interesting ways depending on the matchup. And I'm telling you, this Jokic is too good. So we'll continue to have that debate over there between the Nuggets and the Thunder. But I think the Nuggets are the best team. And when I go to the East, are the Celtics the best team or are the Cavs the best team? You're not going to talk me into the Knicks. Definitely not the Bucks. I can't stand the way they play. I don't know what they're doing.
They're interesting right now because Kuzma's been really efficient since getting there. I think they're a team that just look at them, just wait on them, see what's there. I don't love it either. I don't think they have legs, but you get Dame in the playoffs healthy with Giannis, Kuzma shooting well, they could make a run. But the issue with the East is the Cavs and the Celtics exist, and like the Celtics, you can't really bet against them at this point. The Cavs have looked horrible in the playoffs 2 seasons in a row. I don't know what happens. They just forget how to score once they get there. I can't really bet on a team that plays like that. I like the DeAndre Hunter addition. I think they're a better team because of it. But the Celtics still have Drew Holiday, Derek White, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Kristaps Porzingis. Peyton Pritchard's come around, and like you give him a 6th guy that can really shoot. I don't know how you beat that team.
Yeah, I think the Celtics get there. All right, a couple quick gambling questions for you, then I'll let you run on the NBA. Are all your bets are player props? What is the number 1, 2 things that you're looking for as your process? Because you're going to start doing your play of the day, and they have a bunch of different things you're looking at. But what's like the go-to? Are you looking for? So I felt like in NFL you were targeting a lot of receivers, like the longest catch. Is there something in the NBA that you're typically looking at just to get inside your head on what these plays of the day are going to look like?
Not as much. The issue, so the reason NBA is so much harder than NFL is like NFL, if you think the Giants are going to beat the Panthers and you can just say that, and then you can go, oh, well, Neighbors is their best receiver. Neighbors is probably going to have a big day. Or like if say they have really good secondary, you think they're going to win. I think the running back's going to have a good day. And most of the time you'll be right. If the matchup's there, it's a lot more predictable. In the NBA, if I think the Nuggets are going to beat the Magic, I'm not just going to be like, oh, well, Jokic is going to score 30 points. Like it doesn't really work that way. So what it has to be is 2 things. It's what is the hole for the other team? So like a big one is the Wizards don't defend centers well. They're horrible against centers. So say the Clippers are playing them, I'd be like, oh, Zubac probably is a good matchup here. But then I have to check if he's been playing well because like it could be a great matchup, but these guys can get into cold streaks or they look bad for a while. The other one is always players that are getting a bigger role for either the game or just got one. So Amen Thompson or Asar Thompson, like these are guys that have expanded roles from last year. They're doing a little more. They're guys that, like, just on average, because they rebound and assist so much, points, rebounds, and assists for a guy like that is a lot safer just because the role's bigger. Or like, say, because players get hurt so much, you got to like factor that in. If Giannis is out, well, Kuzma's probably going to have to shoot a little more. If it's a good matchup for Kuzma, that feels like a lot of stuff coming together. And,
I will say, I usually tend to think that the better sports bettors, because a lot of it is luck, but there are people win more often and some people lose more often. Once you get towards the last 25% of the season in the NHL, NBA, and Major League Baseball, I'm willing to, those are the games I look at, because I'm big on, hey, if somebody's studying this and they're looking at numbers and they see something, they need to see it for a longer period of time before it's not just they're bullshitting around, right? And they saw something for a week or two. So, yeah, we'll see how the bets turn out for the last, what do they got, about like 25, 26 games left?
Yeah, and one thing to note, we're coming right up on All-Star break. This is a dead zone. This is a tough one. This is one where you can't like bet on a star to play well because they might just not want to play.
Isn't it? Yeah,
the
it's
values in role players right now. The values in role players who just want to perform for themselves, because the stars are really weird right before the All-Star break.
I was gonna say, usually the best money is on the stars coming out of the All-Star break. Maybe not the first game as they kind of work themselves back from whatever, but they are giving them a lot of time off. But yeah, then it's the sprint, and a lot of them, especially the stars in the West, like nobody. The playoff race will be really fun. So, all right.
No, down the stretch, NBA, like last 10, 15 games, ton of money to be made there. Just, you can literally go in and be like, Anthony Edwards is going to have to shoot a lot. They're in like a play-in race right now. Probably going to be shooting a bunch and playing pretty well.
And then the other thing is, there's two financial incentives for NBA players. The first one is making the All-Star game. So the All-Star voting has ended almost now for a few weeks. That's why it's a little bit of a dead zone, like you said, because there's financial incentive. And then the second financial piece is making all NBA. So a lot of time these guys are be like, let me make a sprint for the last few weeks of the season here. Once the voters, that's why the last week in the NBA is a little tricky, but right up until the voting is pretty much like, you got to put your ballots in here. A lot of writers and people that vote on that stuff, and this affects their money. That's why it's relevant to gambling, because it affects their money. I mean, Tatum was one that got screwed out of a lot of money because of it. If you don't get on the All-NBA team, Jaylen Brown made an extra 50, 60 million because of it. So being on these All-NBA teams is super important when it comes to your contract. But all right, man, we're going to cover a lot of stuff here as we move forward. Put football on hold, a lot of hoops. I'll see you next Tuesday. We'll start to have your play of the day each day, and I'll start keeping track of your record that way. And cool. A few more announcements coming soon. Have a good day. Hope everybody find something to do. The Orioles don't play for a long time, but we got Maryland basketball, so we'll be doing a lot of Maryland basketball. And yeah, thanks, JMart. I'll see you soon, man.
All right, see you, man.